Donald Trump has said he will designate Antifa as a major terrorist organization in the wake of Kirk's assassination. There's no indication that this person, Tyler Robinson, was Antifa or anything like that, right?
President Trump says he will designate Antifa as a major terrorist organization. Now, Antifa is short for anti-fascist. It's a loose affiliation of mostly left-leaning activists. The president wrote on social media last night that he is, quote, designating Antifa, a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster, as a major terrorist organization. He also says he will investigate those who fund the group. CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand joins us from the White House with more on this. Good morning, Natalie. Tell us more about this push from Trump and the administration to crack down on all, it seems, left-leaning groups.
Yeah, Errol, earlier this week, the vice president and White House officials said that the administration is going to do everything in its power to, quote, dismantle institutions that promote violence, political violence in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination. The administration has also alleged that wealthy progressive foundations have funded what they call these far radical and left groups, including Antifa. Now, the president, in this new social media post late last night, overnight UK time, says that he will be recommending that the funding of Antifa be investigated. But based on current laws on the books and First Amendment protections, it's unclear how this would work, what the administration can really do here. Also important to point out that, based on experts who study these groups, even the former FBI director, Antifa is very decentralized. It doesn't have a hierarchical structure, so it's really unclear how he would go after this group. And there's been debate all this week about the First Amendment. On the takeout with Major Garrett last night, the House Oversight Chair, James Comer, was asked if he, in his mind, has a definition of speech that would incentivize or promote violence that would prompt a government response to suppress it. Take a listen to his answer.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's a limit. But I don't know what that would be. I mean, it's just like we all agree that child pornography is not free speech. There are limits to speech, but those would have to.
I don't know if this administration agrees with that. Let's be real, okay? Trump certainly didn't have an issue with child predation. A pal is a wonderful thing, he wrote to Jeffrey Epstein, So I wouldn't be so certain.
Be a big bar, because I believe very strongly in the freedom of speech and in the entire First Amendment.
And as this debate continues, Attorney General Pam Bondi on social media said in her latest post on the topic, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. It's a crime. Errol, back to you.
All right, Natalie, thank you.
Well, Donald Trump was talking about really making sure we tone down the violence. And if you are going to be violent, then you could be put in a category of a terrorist. And he said the Antifa is sick and dangerous, and Antifa will be designated a major terrorist organization. He said, I'm pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa will be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention on this matter.
So 2 things on this. First of all, this is long overdue. It's not just an ideology. If you remember the Summer of Love, that was many of those people were Antifa.
And he talked about doing it then.
That's exactly right. And now he's back in the presidency to make it happen. They're domestic terrorists.
We don't even prosecute the Klan in this country. What are we talking about, dude? We don't even prosecute neo-Nazi groups. Like, think about that. Think about that. We don't prosecute the Klan. We don't prosecute Nazis. We don't investigate these groups, but we're going to investigate something that's not even a group at all. Antifa, anti-fascism, is not an organized body, okay? It is by design something that you do. Anti-fascism is an ideology. Anti-fascism is an action. Anti-fascism does not have a disciplined formation. Fascism requires constant discipline. Anti-fascism does not. Anti-fascism could be anti-racism. All this talk especially coming from this show, by the way, as far as violent language goes, is really interesting because Brian Kilmeade last week straight up said we should euthanize the homeless. We should kill them all. And he didn't like that he accidentally agreed with that, as a matter of fact. It was on camera, caught in 4K. This is thought crime, okay? What are they going to do? The point is, and the reason why I don't actually worry as much, or I'm not as scared, is because we still have some semblance of laws in this country. We have a constitution in this country. And more importantly, we have a bunch of people who I believe, regardless of their political deviations, regardless of their ideology, will respond negatively to this. I am not so certain that people from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life will be excited at this. I know you look at Twitter and I know you see those tweets go viral on the fucking fascist platform run by a white supremacist monster like Elon Musk, and you think, no, there's a lot of people who are excited at this. There's a lot of people who are salivating at the prospect of this. Make no mistake. I told you that people, once they realize Donald Trump was going to do mass deportations, once those mass deportation initiatives came knocking down their doors, would not like it. And that's precisely what happened. And I'm telling you once again, even those who currently celebrate these initiatives do not realize that they will hate it when it's implemented. Okay? It is up to us. If the Democratic Party is not going to do this job, it is up to us to educate people on what that looks like. It is up to us to convince our neighbors that this is completely unjustifiable. Stop saying most people are right-leaning. That is not true. The left-right dynamic does not exist in this situation. There are certain things that Americans believe and defend unconditionally. Okay? Does that mean that some Americans, especially a decent chunk of Americans, can't be convinced? No, of course they can be convinced to love this dictatorship, this fascist dictatorship. Absolutely. But if your assumption is that like even Republicans are going to be appreciative of this stamping out of the political opposition, that they're all going to get on board with this vengeance quest, if you think that they were primed into agreeing with this, then the Trump administration wouldn't be farming the Charlie Kirk assassination to develop this initiative. Do you understand? They would have just done it, and people would have been on board with it regardless. They are trying desperately to get as many people on board as possible. But what they fail to consider is that this kind of stuff annoys people, especially in the absence of any sort of material improvement to their immediate circumstances. They are frustrated, they're angry, and every single day a new person realizes maybe all of this like hunting down trans people, hunting down undocumented Guatemalans is not actually improving my life in the way that I thought it was going to. Every day it's happening. And I told you it was going to happen inevitably, and it's already here. So look to that change in attitude overall. Look to the fact that Donald Trump is less popular now than he was at this point in 2017 to recognize that even though our liberal institutions are completely capitulating to the administration, there is mass discontent. There is mass outrage. There's fear as well. But this can be productive. But it can only be productive if you actually explain to people who the real villains are. It hasn't even been an entire year since Trump came to power, and there is already mass discontent. Okay? You say, dog, the majority of people are sleepwalking through this shit. I agree. I recognize that. I understand that. It is up to us to explain to them what's going on and to shake them out of the stupor that they found themselves in. Okay? We have to wake them up. That's it. And obviously, if this wasn't something that the administration feared, they wouldn't be going after people. They wouldn't be going after people like myself, for example. If I was just an irrelevant personality in the same vein that I've billed myself as for my entire fucking career, and I still do think that, by the way, make no mistake, but I don't think the administration sees it as such, They wouldn't be actively stamping out any sort of political dissent. Do you understand? Only a weak administration engages in these kinds of punitive measures. A strong administration that has the popular mandate doesn't care. They don't care. I mean, you did call the violence. Man, shut the fuck up, dude. Jesus Christ. No, I did not. Okay? I did not. If that gets you more excited at the prospect of stamping out political dissent, good luck to you. But it will fuck you one day as well. This same administration will eventually fuck you as well, because your life is not improving. And eventually, there will be a moment where you wake up to the reality that your life is not improving. And there will be a moment where you say, hey, can we fucking make housing more affordable for people like me, the average Joe? And when you actually ask that question, you'll also get fucking prosecuted. Ignoring this kind of stuff does not go away, okay? Ignoring this kind of stuff does not make it go away. It's not going to go away. You have to address it head on.
Set things on fire, they assault cops, and there was no consequences. The second thing about this that makes it so important, now that they're a domestic terrorist organization, now you can go after the people that are funding it, the RICO cases. And many people have said, George Soros, let's evaluate him and all his Open Society and all of these organizations that are funding these.
I mean, Chatter, if I was a narcissistic person, there are a million different places where I would have stopped doing what I'm doing, you know? If I was a narcissistic person, I would just like stop. I would just stop doing political commentary right now. Don't you think that it's like not the best time? Like, I have enough money, get the fuck out of America, you know? Bot 9887. I'm responding to bots now.
Ground groups.
When Christopher Wray came out and said Antifa is an ideology, it's not a group, we're about to find out if he's wrong or right. Because we don't really have a category for domestic terrorist organizations. Al-Qaeda comes here in our country. Right. They're a terrorist organization, but it's a foreign organization in our country. So this is new. Number two, these pasty-faced kids that go into Starbucks and wreck the place in Seattle and Portland, I would like to see you sit these kids down. A lot of them are overprivileged, and you sit there and go, who funded you? How much you getting paid? Who did it? And just build it like that. Who's the one who called you? How did you guys form? Why do you all wear black? And then you find out what's behind it. And I think it's going to go to a certain funding. These guys aren't rioting for free. Mm-hmm. They're all getting paid. That's why it's important.
Well, real quickly before we move on, to your point, you're right, Brian, that we don't have the domestic terrorism in that sense. But the past administration, they were looking at mom groups.
I know.
They were talking about, by the way, we got new revelations about them targeting Turning Point, FBI going after them. Pro-life groups, they were labeling them as domestic terror. By the way, there was no evidence of this happening. White supremacist groups that they were claiming in the military and all that as domestic terror.
He's talking about Atomwaffen. And the only reason why Atomwaffen was ever targeted was because it was a neo-Nazi group that actually did instances of domestic terror. They recruit from within the military, okay? And the only time when the government actually takes action against groups like Atomwaffen is when they steal explosive ordnance from a fucking base that they used to actually work at and then try to blow up train tracks or some shit. What do you mean? That is insane. There is a reason why people like the Proud Boys, like the 3%ers, the Oath Keepers, and numerous other neo-Nazi formations, all the way from Patriot Front to a million different groups, can openly exist on U.S. soil. The Klan, for example, in spite of the reality that they are responsible for a shit ton of domestic terror incidents and violence, hate crimes, and the like. Because as long as they are demonstrating peacefully, even though we can have a conversation about what their peaceful demonstrations are actually trying to invoke, but as long as they are demonstrating peacefully, it's still legal under the First Amendment. Donald Trump turning around and designating Antifa, which is not even an organization like the ones that I am mentioning, okay, as a terror cell, is not only ridiculous because there is no organized unit that you can point to. You can just like invent one potentially and make it seem as though they are, right? But it's also ridiculous because it goes against the First Amendment. it leads to what Republicans used to say is thought crime. I think conservatives love having paid protester fantasies because they're so obsessed with money they can't fathom standing behind their own principles for free when the rubber hits the road. No, it's not that. It's actually sadder than that. It's a grifter party. The left does direct action and mass mobilization because it's comprised of people who actually give a shit. It's sadder than that. It's because they know deep down inside that their ideas are not popular. That's the same exact reason why everyone is losing their minds over people accurately reflecting on Charlie Kirk quotes in the aftermath of his death. Republicans are hyper obsessed with dominating culture. They already dominate the country. They already own the government. But the thing that they can't own is popular support for their ideas. They can sell it, especially when the opposing party in our duopoly is dog shit like the Democrats were, right? And still are, mind you. They can at least present themselves as marginally better. But on its face, their legislative agenda is cruel and at best a simple distraction. And this is precisely the reason why they constantly try to create hug boxes, echo chambers, where they are like, no, we are more popular than you actually think. Like Twitter is a great example of this. They try to make it seem, they try to delude themselves into thinking that their ideas are more popular than they actually are. But once implemented, those ideas are not popular. You know what kind of ideas are popular, however? Ones that are seemingly impossible to take out, regardless of how much Democrats and certainly Republicans have tried to take them away. Social Security. Is that a right-wing proposition? No. Welfare. Is that a right-wing proposition? No. SNAP benefits. Medicaid. Medicare. You can only tackle social safety nets by shrouding it in secrecy, by initiating scalebacks and drawbacks in the dead of the night without people paying attention to it. That's the only way that you can do it. Through cloak and daggers. If Republicans were honestly running around and being like, we want to make sure that the working poor suffer, people would say, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. To step out of the hug box, to have enough humility to say they were wrong while still having enough backbone to stand up for others who need to wake up. And it seems very few people are capable of these two features. No, because the average person is like quiet in their support for the most part. Not everyone is as loud and proud, even though MAGA supporters usually are very loud. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that people can quietly change their positions and become loyal friends that recognize right from wrong.
They did investigation, didn't find anything on it. These people actually set things on fire.
Well,
Right.
Antifa is short for anti-fascist, and it's a violent group. They're in the shadows. They wear these masks, and then they go in and they spark violent riots.
So meanwhile, President Trump announcing plans to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, saying this, quote, I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I'm designating Antifa as a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Fox News contributor Ben Dominich joins us now. Ben, they're not just an ideology. They're a violent group. This was the right move, right?
Well, yes, it was. Lawrence, I will caution that, this is a move that the president actually made near the end of his term in 2020, though at the time that he made it, there wasn't really the opportunity to lean into it the way that I believe this second administration is going to. Namely that Antifa, to your point, is not just some vague ideology, as we were told by Christopher Wray and others at the time.
Right.
It's actually an organized group, and they've performed organized activity across the country.
Yeah, this is intentionally vague, by the way. They're saying they know that anti-fascism is an ideology, okay? It's a good ideology, as a matter of fact. It's good. It's great. We should all be anti-fascist. We were all taught to be anti-fascist. Our grandparents were anti-fascist when they fought the Nazis, okay? But the reason why Ben Domenech, who is completely aware that this is not like a real organized unit, is because that allows the administration, if implemented, to target whatever group they see fit as organizing protests. And they're doing that already. They're going after PSL, for example, Party of Socialism and Liberation. If you've attended any of the ICE protests all around the country, you most likely attended a Party of Socialism and Liberation organized protest. If you attended any of the Palestine protests, Palestinian Youth Movement is another organization that they're going after. These are all anti-fascist organizations. It's true. But they're not Antifa in the way that these guys design it. Answer Coalition is another one as well. They're going after these organizations that are real organizations that do more than just, anti-fascist action. But they're doing so because they oppose the administration. It's that simple.
And attacking, multiple different places, cities and facilities, including most recently in North Texas, where someone attacked an ICE facility there. This is a situation where you have these domestic terror cells that are organizing online, and they deserve to be investigated, particularly when it comes to the financial backing that they receive, which really has been a black box to this point. We deserve to know more about how they're getting funded.
Ben, why do you think there was hesitance from the politicians as well as not the rank and file law enforcement because they know it, but the political appointee law enforcement to do this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that one of the things that has been an item of awareness for quite a long time is that this last administration under Joe Biden leaned heavily into targeting various conservative groups, right, Christian groups, and the like for all sorts of investigation. Really,
yeah, No. The Department of Justice's very own analysis showed that the overwhelming majority of political violence and acts of domestic terror came from, and this might come as a surprise to people if you only watch mainstream news, you hear the exact opposite of this. It came from far-right anti-government extremist groups, many of them white supremacists, white nationalists, and the like. Shocker, I know. And of course, for good governance purposes, the law enforcement authorities for a brief moment actually decided, while they were still doing the black identitarian extremism shit too on the side with black Israelite groups that they were targeting, okay? Or people that they thought were affiliated with like black Israelite groups or Nation of Islam and the like. For every 2 or 3 people that they nabbed from those groups, there were hundreds that they were investigating on the far right that were directly responsible for acts of domestic terror. It's so ridiculous.
I think in many instances abusing their power and framing them falsely as white supremacist groups and the like. And I think that this administration is basically saying, look, you took your eye off the ball. Those groups were never a threat to the American people. They never represented an actual violent threat. And instead, you persecuted them. We're now going to use the full force of the law to go after the people who really do represent violent threats across the country. And I think this is part of a stepped up attitude. And frankly, if Democrats want to defend Antifa and go down that,
is joining the PSL or Answer Coalition a bad idea? No, fuck no. No, of course it's not. I think not being a part of any sort of organized movement at this point is a bad idea rather than a good one.
That road, as I saw David Axelrod and others suggesting this was going to be some kind of political witch hunt.
Incredible.
I think that more power to them. I think it's absolutely detestable.
The moment that you think, joining any organization that resists the Trump administration is bad, the moment that you let that fear set in is the moment where they've won, okay? You're obeying in advance. It's ridiculous. Do you want these pedophilic, drunk, perverted assholes to win? What are we doing? They already won? No, they didn't.
And the truth is that anyone who wants law, order, and a non-chaotic streets in our cities across the country should be in favor of knowing more about what Antifa is doing before they do it.
Yeah, they had no problem arresting the praying grandma in the Capitol, but the people that are setting buildings on fire. Let's not go too far. Ben Dominus, thanks so much for joining.
Good to be with you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian.
Americans are spineless. Fascism has already won. Stop coping. All right, dude. Let's just fucking sit around and wait for the admin to come and put us in concentration camps. This kind of attitude is so stupid, dude. Do you think you're fucking edgy when you say this kind of nihilistic bullshit? Is that what you think? Do you think this is a productive attitude to have right now? In this very moment, when there are a lot of people who are angry but don't know exactly how to channel that frustration. When you come in here and say dumb fuck bullshit like this, oh, Americans are already fascist. Americans are spineless. Fascism is already won. Stop coping. All right, we should just give up. You can say the same about Gaza. Just give up. Whatever. The genocide is happening, right? Don't you think it's fucking unimaginably disrespectful to those who have been martyred by the state of Israel already and those you could prevent the martyring of to do whatever you can? How many times do I have to fucking say this? Why not leave the country? Because I'm stubborn. I don't know how many times I have to explain this, dude. Just give up. Just give up, dude. Fuck it. Just give up. No reason to fight back as this government takes away everything that you hold near and dear. Didn't you wear that yesterday? No, the jacket is the same. Just now, New York City Comptroller Brad Lander was arrested by Department of Homeland Security police a second time. Lander refused to leave the 10th floor until he was allowed to inspect ICE holding cells there. He was arrested with 10 other state elected officials. I think a lot of people just assume that if they close their eyes, plug their ears, that this problem will eventually magically evaporate, that they'll go away. Okay? It's not going away.
What's happening with...
It's not going away, man.